Welcome in. Ready to dive into the world of Jane Eyre.
Always up for a good Bronte deep dive.
We asked for your favorite excerpts, and wow, you guys delivered so much to unpack, even in these snippets. But we're going to focus on Jane's early life, those years at Gateshead and Lowood.
Oh, those are crucial formative years for her.
Bronte doesn't hold back either, does she? The way she describes those settings, it's so vivid.
It's like you're right there with her, feeling the chill of those cold, grand houses. And those details aren't just for atmosphere.
Oh, absolutely not. They're reflecting the harsh realities of the time, especially for a girl like Jane.
Exactly. An orphan, alone in the world, with so few options simply because she's female. It's hard for us to even imagine those societal constraints today.
It really makes you appreciate how far we've come, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And speaking of constraints, let's talk about those characters at Gateshead the Reeds. John, Eliza, Georgiana.
Ah, yes. The quintessential dysfunctional family.
They're almost like caricatures of societal expectations, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Take John, for instance. He's not just a bully, though he certainly is that. He embodies that sense of male entitlement, the power he holds over Jane.
The way he abuses her, both physically and verbally, it's awful.
And it's a stark reminder of the power dynamics of that era. Bronte isn't subtle about it.
And then you have Eliza and Georgiana. They're all beauty and vanity. Bronte gives us these glimpses into their conversations, so shallow, so obsessed with appearances.
It's like she's holding up a mirror to the emptiness of high society's values. And what's interesting is that they represent what society expects of Jane, too.
Despite her intelligence, her spirit, it's all about conforming to those narrow definitions of womanhood.
Right. It makes you root for Jane to break free, to forge her own path.
Oh, absolutely. And even as a child, you see that fire in her.
Oh, yes.
That scene where she finally explodes at Mrs. Reed, I get chills every time I read it.
It's such a powerful moment.
To have that kind of courage, even in the face of such blatant oppression, it's remarkable.
That's a turning point for Jane. We see her moral compass, her refusal to be a victim. And it's not an isolated incident either. Think about how she stands up to Miss Scatcherd's tyranny at Lowood.
Or even that quiet determination in her conversation with Bessie about leaving Gateshead.
Exactly. It all builds this picture of a young woman determined to forge her own path.
It's like those early experiences, as difficult as they were, they planted the seeds of independence that will define her later choices. Which makes me think about Thornfield, such a shift in setting.
A whole new world opens up for Jane.
That unsettling atmosphere, the mysterious sounds Jane hears, Bronte really starts weaving in those Gothic elements.
Thornfield itself is a character, wouldn't you say?
No, I completely agree.
The name itself, suggestive of beauty but also hidden dangers. It's the perfect backdrop for all the secrets and unsettling events that unfold. And then, of course, there's Mr. Rochester.
He's such a puzzle, isn't he, Mr. Rochester? Brooding, secretive.
Oh, absolutely. He's got that Byronic hero thing going on, doesn't he?
Totally. That intensity, that air of mystery, like he's carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders.
Exactly. And Bronte really plays with the power dynamics between him and Jane.
You can feel it right from their first encounter.
She's a young governess, alone with this enigmatic man in that huge, isolated house.
It's almost like she's drawn to the very darkness that surrounds him.
Right. And you can't help but worry for Jane a little bit. But at the same time, she's drawn to his intellect, his passion. It's that classic Bronte blend of attraction and apprehension.
And just when you think you're starting to understand their dynamic, bam, Blanche Ingram arrives on the scene. Talk about a calculated contrast.
Oh, Blanche. She's everything. Victorian society values beauty, wealth, social standing.
The work.
While Jane, we know how Jane is viewed by the likes of Mrs. Reed and her ilk.
And Jane sees right through Blanche, doesn't she?
Oh, absolutely. Remember those keen observations Jane makes about Blanche's behavior?
Bronte doesn't miss a beat, does she? Those little digs at Blanche's shallowness, her calculated attempts to charm Rochester.
It's like Jane can sense that beneath that polished exterior, there's not much else going on.
You can practically feel the tension radiating off the pages when Jane watches them interact. The jealousy, the insecurity. Oh, it's so relatable even now.
Isn't it? Here she is, falling for this complicated, brooding man, knowing deep down that someone like Blanche is a far more suitable match in the eyes of society.
And just when you think it can't get any more complicated, boom! The Bertha revelation hits you like a ton of bricks.
Oh man, that's the ultimate plot twist, right? The secret wife hidden away in the attic.
I could practically hear the gasps from readers across time when that truth came out. It's heartbreaking, shocking, and it changes everything.
Completely.
Yes.
Suddenly, everything we thought we knew about Rochester, about Jane's world, It's all thrown into question.
And Jane, oh Jane, she's forced to confront the true cost of her feelings.
That's the turning point in the novel, isn't it? It's not just about romantic betrayal, although it's certainly that too. It's about societal hypocrisy, about the impossible choices thrust upon women in Jane's position.
She's damned if she does, damned if she doesn't.
Exactly. And what she does next is just, wow. I mean, talk about courage.
To walk away from Rochester like that?
Right. After everything they'd been through. But she does it.
It breaks your heart, but it also makes you respect her so much. She refuses to compromise her values, her sense of self, even for love.
Exactly. It's like she's saying, I deserve more than to be a secret.
More than to be the other woman.
Right. And that's what makes Bronte's work so powerful, so ahead of its time. She subverts those traditional romantic expectations. Jane's not waiting around to be rescued. She chooses herself.
And then, of course, we have that whole period with St. John Rivers. Talk about a 180 from Rochester.
Oh, St. John. He's like the embodiment of RC control, isn't he? Where Rochester is all passion and darkness, St. John is all duty and piety.
It's almost like she jumps from the frying pan into the fire, in a way.
In a way, yes.
Yeah.
But remember, she's vulnerable at this point. She's been through the ringer emotionally. She's searching for a place to belong, for some sense of security.
And St. John represents that, doesn't he?
He does, on the surface at least. He offers her stability, respectability. He offers her a clearly defined role in a world that has offered her so little.
But it's not what her heart wants, and that's the conflict, isn't it?
It is. And it's a testament to how much Jane has grown that she recognizes that. Her rejection of St. John, as painful as it is for both of them, it shows how much she's learned about herself.
That scene where she tells him she's no bird, that no net can hold her, it always gives me chills.
It's such a powerful statement, right? She's not just rejecting St. John, she's rejecting anyone who tries to define her, to limit her. She's choosing freedom, even if it means embracing the unknown.
Which brings us back to Thornfield.
Full circle.
Even though it's not the Thornfield we remember, even though Rochester is changed.
Scarred, both physically and emotionally.
Their reunion, it's bittersweet, isn't it?
It is. Because it raises so many questions. Is it a victory, that they find their way back to each other? Or is it a compromise, a settling after all they've endured?
It's the kind of ending that sparks endless debate, right? Some see it as romantic, others see it as tragic.
Exactly. And that's the genius of Bronte, I think. She doesn't give us easy answers. She leaves us with that ambiguity, forcing us to grapple with those big questions ourselves.
What constitutes a happy ending? What does it mean to truly love someone, flaws and all?
And what does it mean to live a fulfilling life on your own terms? Jane Eyre, it stays with you long after you close the book.
It certainly does, and we hope this deep dive has stayed with you too. What do you think about Jane's choices? About that ambiguous ending? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, happy reading.